Hello, welcome to my channel. So I wanted to do a really quick disclaimer for this video, and I'm sorry if the audio sounds really bad right now. I'm having some technical difficulties with my mic, so bear with me. The rest of the video will have better audio than this disclaimer. So I wanted to start off this video by saying that I wrote the script almost a year ago at this point, and I filmed most of the video back in April. So it was before some really bad tragedies happened here in America. And I just didn't want to come across as insensitive when I talk about some of the crime statistics later on in the video. This is just a topic that I'm really passionate about and I really wanted to talk about it. But I just wanted to preface by saying that I don't mean any harm in anything that I say in this video. And none of it is really harmful. It's just I discussed some crime statistics and I didn't want that to come across as me being callous. And I don't think it does, but I just wanted to make my intentions clear. My intentions with this video is to talk about the intricacies of discussing true crime and how it affects the way we perceive the world. Obviously, we should all be careful in our everyday lives, but we shouldn't live in fear either. Statistically, we aren't in any more danger than we have been in the past, minus some exceptions. We are just more aware of all of the possible dangers due to social media and the news. The media takes advantage of us and our fear in exchange for views and, by extension, money. I believe that the sensationalizing of crime in the news has had a negative impact on our mental health as a collective, and I think it's important to talk about it. A lot of people live in paranoia and fear from all the things they see on a day-to-day basis. But I also don't want to downplay any of the terrible things that have happened either, because they're terrible, they're awful. As you can see, this is a very tricky and nuanced topic, and I want to do it justice, and I hope you can see that that was my intention with this video. With all that said, here is my deep dive into true crime coverage and its effects on society. I consume a lot of true crime content, probably an unhealthy amount. So at the end of last year, I decided that I wanted to lower my consumption of true crime content. I felt like always surrounding myself with these darker topics is probably not good for me. And also, some of the shows that I watched were just kind of icky, for lack of a better word. This thought process all started when I watched a video by Oxygen. And Oxygen is actually a network television channel, but they also have a YouTube channel. And what they do with their YouTube videos is they insert ads for their other shows in the YouTube video itself. And the titles of these shows really opened my eyes to how true crime cases are treated. With titles like Family Massacre, Charmed to Death, Killer Motive, and many others, it really hit me that people are coming up with catchy titles to get people to click so that they can make money off of people's misfortunes. And it really rubbed me the wrong way. A few months later, people on YouTube started to talk about the ethics of true crime, and I found myself really agreeing with everything they were saying. Even though I am someone who has watched true crime content in many forms since I was a literal child, it really made me reconsider things. It made me realize that there is a fine line with how we talk about murder and other tragedies, and we have to be careful not to re-victimize survivors or the families of victims. So today I wanted to talk about this and sort of reevaluate my relationship with true crime. Since I have already briefly discussed Oxygen, which is a network television channel, I will go into more detail on network television's part in true crime. For years, TV has had a hand in how these cases were covered, and they were also able to influence the public on what to think about these cases. This all changed when true crime content on YouTube and other platforms really blew up and people were developing communities on sites like Reddit. It was at this point people were able to come to their own conclusions, and they developed a community to discuss these theories with. This also increased the demand for coverage of more obscure cases, and as a result, the amount of television networks that cover true crime cases increased as well. It used to be mostly news channels or investigative discovery that covered true crime cases, but since it's become more popular, a lot of other networks have now dipped their toes in the pool. It has always been popular, but in recent years it has become more mainstream to be captivated by a murder case. So now that we've talked about network television, let's go into the online true crime content. The first person we're going to be talking about is Bailey Sarian. I do love Bailey, so this is not an attack on her. I genuinely think that she is a good person with good intentions, and I don't think she's at fault for the whole true crime ethics question. I think that this is more of a systematic issue and she's just the result of that. I'm only using her as an example because she's one of the biggest true crime creators at the moment, and she's someone that a lot of people would recognize. The issues that I have with her content have been brought up by other commentary channels, so what I'm about to say is not going to be revolutionary, but I still want to talk about it. And please stick around to the other people that I'm going to be talking about, because this is not the only person I want to discuss today. So if you've already heard all of these points, then I have like timestamps, hopefully on the video, that you can go to the next example. So first of all, I think that her thumbnails and her titles are kind of clickbaity and very gross sometimes. Now, I know that she does that for clicks because that's the name of the YouTube game, but it's still kind of not cool. And like a lot of other people have said, doing your makeup while discussing really dark topics is kind of strange. Personally, I don't see a whole lot of problems with this as long as you're still being respectful. She doesn't talk about products that much, and she has stated that the reason that she does this is to keep her hands busy so she can focus on the topic. As a person who talks with their hands and has attention problems sometimes, I can totally relate. Overall, I don't think she's a bad person, but like so many other true crime creators, she does capitalize on the cases that she talks about, and talking about these cases may re-victimize survivors or the families of those that were murdered. I do, however, like what she's doing with the Dark History podcast. I feel like a lot of the stuff on there is not going to have like a direct impact on people living today, since a lot of that stuff happened so long ago. I'm not saying that some of the episodes of this podcast couldn't still be impactful. A lot of the episodes chronicle the beginnings of systematic issues that still affect people today. But she's not talking about somebody's murdered relative, so I think that's a step up from that. And raising awareness for the true stories behind these issues is never a bad thing. So I can appreciate her work on the Dark History podcast. Another aspect of this discussion is people seeing how much money and fame covering true crime cases can get you and changing their entire brand to fit that. This is not really about Bailey. I feel like when she started the Murder Mystery and Makeup Monday series, true crime was popular, but not necessarily as popular as it is now. So there are two channels I want to bring up when it comes to people just covering true crime cases for money and fame only. I'm not going to say their names because if you know, you know, and I also don't want to bring any traffic to their channel, even if it is just one person. It's a brand new day, I have a new outfit on, I ran out of time yesterday when filming, so I had to pause that and do it today. So the first person we're going to be talking about is a reaction/commentary channel that focuses mainly on family and mommy vloggers. This in itself is not a bad thing. I think we should be talking more about the ethics of family channels. But the way that this person discusses the women running this channel and the way that they talk about their looks and demean them is just not okay. It's totally okay to say that what they're doing is wrong, but to be downright mean and bully them for their looks is just not. I also think that it does a disservice to the whole anti-family vlogging community to have one of the main content creators talking about this topic be a bully. So they mostly focus on anti-family vlogging, but recently this channel has started to cover true crime cases. I guess this wasn't completely out of the blue because this was around the time that the Gabby Petito case was in the news and being talked about a lot. But they made video after video of this case, and I counted a total of 21 videos about either Gabby Petito or Brian Laundrie. 21. If that isn't profiting off the situation, I do not know what is. A more ethical true crime creator would cover the case initially to raise awareness for the missing person, or after more information became available, or after the case had already been solved. But this person just kept making videos for no reason. Like, the case was at a standstill for a while, and he just kept making videos about this, and then people would click on it because they were like, oh, more information. But not really. It was more of like speculation videos, I feel like. They recently uploaded an update video on this case, but up until then, it was not long after Brian had been found that they just kind of quit covering this case. And the whole thing just screams exploiting the virality of this case and the victim to get views. It's extremely disingenuous and frankly disgusting. Now let's talk about another channel that did a very similar thing. I'm going to go on a bit of a tangent with this one because this channel has had its fair share of controversies, and I want to bring those up briefly to give context to their recent transition to exclusively true crime content. This person has had a crisis with the type of content that they wanted to make since the beginning of their channel. So this doesn't come as quite the shock as the person we discussed previously. Like I mentioned, the other person had already established a niche with the anti-family vlogging content, but this person we're talking about now could not really find their niche. Just to preface, there's nothing wrong with changing the type of content that you want to create or introducing a new series to your channel. I talk about everything under the sun here on this channel, and it's normal to be interested in a lot of different things. So changing up your content is totally okay if you're doing it for the right reasons, which I feel this person was not. Obviously, I can't read their minds, but from an outsider's perspective, it really does not look good. So this person started their YouTube channel making a variety of content on a lot of different things. They wanted to make it as a YouTuber, but they had trouble finding their niche. They were making beauty content, how-to content, reviews, until they finally found their footing when they started covering anti-MLM. For those of you that don't know, MLM stands for multi-level marketing. This type of business utilizes independent contractors to either sell a product or recruit people under them to make money. It has been proven time and time again that this business model is predatory, and they rely mostly on recruitment over selling a product. The recruitment aspect of these companies closely mirrors pyramid schemes, and a lot of people refer to them as legal pyramid schemes. It is well known that these businesses are able to stay afloat because of the loophole that they sell a product. But what a lot of people don't know is that the founders and CEOs of a lot of these companies have their hands in the pockets of many politicians. There is a lot going on behind the scenes that benefit these companies that take advantage of people. These companies are also known for changing the naming of the type of company that they are. So if they don't call themselves multi-level marketing companies, they could be calling themselves something else, such as direct sales, direct marketing, social sales, among many others. So keep a lookout for anything involving recruitment, even if they say that their main focus is sales. If it involves recruitment at all, I would be wary of that company. Also, they kind of have to say that they're mostly focusing on sales to keep them from looking like a pyramid scheme. So all of that to say, I would definitely consider myself anti-MLM as a person, even though I don't make content surrounding anti-MLM. So back to the channel I was talking about. This channel garnered a lot of attention making anti-MLM content, that is, until they joined Monat. And just as a side note, I don't really understand how to say the name Monat. It stands for Modern Nature, so I think it's Monat. But a lot of the recruiters call it by different names, so it's like they call it Monet, Monat, Monat, just a lot of different names. And I feel like the first thing you should be taught when you're recruited into this business is how to say the freaking name. I'm so confused. So this person explained their reasoning for joining Monat, but I really don't understand it at all. When they talked about it, they basically said that you don't know if something is bad unless you try it, or something along those lines. They deleted the video, so I can't really go back and watch it, but from what I remember, that was like one of the main reasons. First of all, there's plenty of evidence to prove that this business structure is bad. Second of all, you don't have to try things to know that they're bad. Like, we know drugs are bad. I don't have to go out and try them to know that. Like, that reasoning just doesn't make sense to me. From what I remember, they also said that they just did anti-MLM content to get views. And that really upset the anti-MLM community. I won't deny that this community has had a lot of issues, and we need to have compassion when it comes to people who are stuck in these businesses, but I digress. So not long after this person joined Monat, they quit Monat, and then their channel transitioned exclusively to true crime content. If you look at this channel, there is about a 2-year gap between the videos that they used to make and their true crime videos. but that is because they deleted all of the anti-MLM content and anything involving that whole saga. A lot of people actually really enjoy their true crime content, and I will give them credit that they did make a video or two about true crime back in like 2020 before they started doing exclusively true crime, so maybe it wasn't as abrupt as it looks when you look at their channel, but those videos are also deleted as well. For some reason. I watched a video on the history of their channel and they are quoted saying they tried to do true crime content before but got tired of it. This sounds to me like their heart just wasn't into it at all. And the fact that their whole channel is now dedicated to true crime really raises some flags to me. Obviously you can change your mind about things, but it seems a little suspicious. Like, if they were tired of it back then, why is now any different? Like, it's not just about the content. These are real victims, and real people are still being affected by these cases. You can't just treat it like it's this fun little topic for content, and that's exactly how it feels in this case. This is just an example about what happens to a lot of these channels. They make one video about a case that interests them, they see the views and possible financial gain from it, and then they make their whole channel about true crime. On one hand, it's understandable, but on the other, it's really gross. So those are two examples of people on YouTube who I feel use true crime content to get views and make money without actually really caring about it, and that's incredibly sad. As a disclaimer, this is just my opinion. Take everything I say with a grain of salt. This is just how I feel about these two content creators. So now I want to briefly discuss the appeal of true crime. I can't speak for everyone, but I will tell you what I find interesting about true crime content. I think the main thing I find interesting about true crime is the psychology of someone who is so incredibly alien to me. Someone who could do so much harm is contrary to everything I stand for and believe in. As someone who can't even kill bugs without feeling guilty, it is so hard for me to understand how somebody could hurt another person. Another thing I really like to hear about is people getting justice and bad people getting what they deserve. I have also been watching crime shows since I was a little kid, so it's something that is familiar to me. For some people, I think that they get caught up in the puzzle of true crime, and they feel like they could help find some answers for these cases, kind of like wannabe detectives. There is also an element of feeling like you're a part of something and participating in a community. Another thing I find interesting about the appeal of true crime is its largely female audience. I know a lot of people have talked about this before, but what's fascinating is how women are most likely to be the victims of these crimes, yet they are also the primary audience for true crime content. Women also make up some of the most popular true crime channels. I've tried to figure out why this phenomenon exists, but it's really hard to pinpoint the exact reason why women love true crime. I think it all boils down to both the morbid fascination of it as well as trying to gain control in a world where women are more likely to be victimized. I think watching this type of content helps us to learn how to avoid certain types of situations or diffuse arguments with very dangerous people. We have learned to never hitchhike, always meet in public, keep an eye out for red flags in relationships, and we have also learned about the different resources available to us if we are ever victimized. I'm sure there may be other psychological reasons for this, but those two I feel are the most likely reasons why women love true crime. Another element to the whole conversation around true crime content is desensitization. Basically, we've become sort of desensitized to very heinous things, and that's incredibly dangerous, especially when it's murder and violence. For me personally, I found myself listening to true crime podcasts while I went to sleep, which was another warning sign that I was probably consuming too much of this. It was just incredibly wild, and this is not something I should be able to fall asleep to. If I can fall asleep listening to a murder case, then something is wrong. But I think this is an issue for a lot of us. We watch so much of this that nothing is really shocking or surprising anymore, when all of this should make us incredibly sick. That's not to say that people who watch true crime are more likely to be violent. I hope I'm not alone in thinking that this type of content could make us more callous to these things, and it might be damaging in the long run. I also think true crime could make the world look worse than it actually is. I'm constantly hearing phrases like, in today's world, you have to be more careful in today's world, everything has gone downhill, and a lot of those same platitudes. You mainly hear things like this from older generations, but I'm starting to hear it from people my age as well. A lot of this relates to romanticizing the past or idealizing your childhood, which is rooted in other psychological theories. But I think true crime has played a part in this as well. I think this is a larger conversation to be had, but I want to touch on it briefly here. According to statistics, the number of violent crimes in the US was drastically lower in the 2010s than in the 80s and 90s. This is especially impressive when you consider that the population of the United States has increased in those years. When I was researching this, I also found that there was almost the exact same amount of murders in the year 1969 and the year 2010. However, there were over 100 million more people in the United States in 2010 than there were in 1969. Violent crimes have been occurring since the beginning of time, but it is because of our access to the internet and television that our awareness of these situations has increased. People living in the late 60s were at just as much or even more of a risk of being murdered as people living in the early 2010s. People just weren't aware of all the things happening back then because they didn't have the internet. They had television and radio news, which was definitely sensationalized, but to a lesser degree than it is now. Not only is this panic caused by the popularity of true crime content, but the media has always sensationalized things and they make us have more fear about crime than is necessary. The more extreme and exciting and interesting a story is, the more views the news station gets. This has been an issue since the beginning of news broadcasting. I make this point not to say that we shouldn't be afraid of violent offenders or that we shouldn't try to protect ourselves and be careful. Obviously, there are bad people in the world and those bad people are going to do bad things, so it's not always preventable, but I think that we can be careful while also understanding that the world is not as bad as it seems. This is just another way that true crime affects how we view the world and how we live our lives. For complete transparency, there was an increase in violent crimes between 2019 and 2020. Also, the 2020 violent crime rates are about the same as they were back in 2015-2016, so it's not at its highest like it was in the 80s and 90s. I also forget to mention that our true crime obsession might have had a direct effect on the violent crime statistics. This could be correlation, not causation. I'm not saying that these two things are directly related, but it is an interesting thing to notice. So let's just explore this thought for a minute. If it's true that true crime content has had a direct effect on the violent crime rates, then maybe it has deterred some criminals. If you've watched a lot of true crime, then you might agree with me in saying that it has shown us how hard it is to get away with a crime. There are video surveillance cameras everywhere, in front of businesses, in front of homes, doorbell cameras. There's cameras everywhere. Someone is bound to catch your crime on camera. And even if a criminal is careful, they may leave trace amounts of DNA that is not visible to the naked eye. And this DNA can be used to catch them. Forensics and DNA profiling have gotten so advanced in just like the past few years. They can even track down a criminal based on their relatives' DNA. I think that true crime content helps display the advances in forensic science to the public. And it shows how hard it is to get away with a crime, which may deter people from doing those crimes. Obviously, some people are just bad people and they're going to do bad things, but maybe showing how hard it is to get away with a crime might help prevent people from wanting to do it. I don't know. Like I said, this could just be correlation, not causation. It's just a theory that I'm thinking about. So you know how in crime documentaries people will often describe the victims in very generic phrases like they were so sweet, they were so kind, or one of the most popular phrases is they lit up a room when they come in, or something along those lines. People are so individual and not everyone can be described that way, but they often are. I want to hear cute or funny stories about the person that deserved to live a long and happy life. And when you use generic terms and phrases, it really takes away from the fact that these are unique people. I just think humans are so incredibly interesting. We should always strive to tell their stories with respect and be as truthful as possible. Talk about them as a person and try not to be so surface level, because we are all complex and multifaceted. And it just breaks my heart that these people are taken out of this world so cruelly. The least we could do is give them some dignity and respect after they're gone. Also, if you're passionate about justice and advocating for victims, there is nothing wrong with that at all. We need people like you. We need more coverage of obscure cases that have never been solved. We need justice for people. We need to expose the systems that are broken and don't serve the people that they claim to. And we need to learn about and expose dangerous people. However, we just don't need another Ted Bundy or Jeffrey Dahmer documentary. There comes a point where you're not focused on how terrible these people were or being a voice for the victim and instead just making a spectacle of it all. I know this video was a little dark, but I hope you got something out of it, and I hope it makes you reconsider your relationship with true crime. I won't tell you what to do, but I feel like we have to start being more considerate of the people that actually matter in these cases, the victims. I hope you all have a great day or night wherever you are. And if you need a little pick-me-up, I will link my music playlist down below titled Happy, and I hope it makes you just a little bit more happy. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.